And now, here is Walter Bingham.
Hello and welcome to a short but packed program for March 19th, 2021, which in the Hebrew calendar is the 6th day of the month of Nisan, 5781. It's also the day on which Israel chooses a new government for the 4th time in 2 years. And I believe that the outcome will determine whether there will be a 5th time in the not-too-distant future. I am Walter Bingham, and I thank you for spending time with me, but I hope that I can also reward you by providing a varied and interesting program. You will hear about the hardship that COVID has caused in Israel. There's a short comment on Ghislaine Maxwell, who assisted the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and a word about our vaccination miracle. We shall hear the latest about travel and tourism. Listen to that. It's wrong to make it easy for Jews to immigrate to Israel, and very difficult for non-Jews. That is the opinion of one law professor, who will hear why he is wrong. But I begin with a piece explaining the depth to which our politicians have sunk in their quest for power. My experience of general elections goes back to my life in the United Kingdom and stretches for more years than I care to remember. As is the norm there, political parties vie for votes in a variety of ways. Their leaders and prospective candidates travel the country from one end to the other. They shake hands, smile at people, cuddle babies, and hold speaking events. Sometimes they're accompanied by a well-known personality with a large following or a senior politician, an obvious sign of endorsements. Posters of the candidate's friendly picture over the name and the slogan to vote for him or her appear on prominent sites. Newspapers carry articles expounding the differences between the policies of the parties, and advertisements spell them out with a political bias. Of course, in the UK, the number of serious parties on the list usually does not exceed 4 or 5. A few others, like the Looney Party, with its representative in costume, register for every election and inject some light-hearted relief into the serious business of choosing the next government. Whilst the rhetoric of the candidates may include criticism of opponents, it will ever only be in the context of their policies. We've got to break here to earn some money, but don't go away, there's a lot more about our election.
And now, here is Walter Bingham.
We're talking about elections. Whilst the rhetoric of the candidates in UK elections may include criticism of opponents, it will ever only be in the context of their policies. I cannot recall to have ever heard or read personal insults or untoward language. In any case, the election expenditure, the framework of canvassing in the UK, is strictly regulated. Unfortunately, this is not so in Israel. Here it seems to be a free-for-all under the erroneous mantle of free speech. In this country we have adopted political correctness as the norm. Justice Minister Avi Nissenkorn announced, for instance, that several official forms issued by the Justice Ministry would be amended to accommodate the demands of the LGBT community. Government documents will cease to specify the gender of the parents, and that instead of mother and father, they would state parent 1 and parent 2. It seems that it's also deemed politically correct to use any language that comes to mind when describing the political opponent. So when choosing the party for which to vote, should I not also take into consideration their moral and ethical standards? Should I not also assess the character of the candidates to see how they behave toward their fellow citizen? COVID-19 is not the only cause for fever. As the election temperature in Israel is hotting up, so is the realization of the parties and their leaders that this time the result is not cut and dried. In their desperation to denigrate their opponents in order to enhance their own chances, they resort to language that is not only unbecoming to your neighbor, but totally against Jewish ethics. There are many references to that subject in our scriptures. In Pirkei Avot, that's Ethics of the Fathers, we read, "One who publicly humiliates others, he has no share in the world to come." The convicted criminal and former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert refers to Prime Minister Netanyahu as narcissist, crook, and liar, and that during confrontations between his opponents, blood will be spilled. What a lowlife! Then it is reported that Benny Gantz, former IDF chief of staff turned politician, referred to Netanyahu as a piece of crap. Avigdor Lieberman, head of the Israel Beitenu party, wants to dispatch Netanyahu and the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox, in a wheelbarrow to the trash heap. No doubt he doesn't care about the next world. And these are the people who expect us to vote for them, who want to be leaders of a Jewish state. Rav Hirsch, also in Pirkei Avot, explains that embarrassing others is the gravest of all sins against the dignity and nobleness inherent in every human being, by virtue of the fact that he or she has been made in the image of God. Along the same lines, the Meri notes that one who humiliates or embarrasses others shows an ethical flaw indicative of the grievous lack of basic human decency. Our scriptures abound with such statements. Yet, following the latest Supreme Court ruling on conversion, which is unacceptable, the ultra-Orthodox in their election advertisement called the Reformed Jews clowns and dogs, accompanied by the picture of a dog wearing talit and tefillin, prayer shawl and phylacteries. Where is their respect for human dignity? After that, I think we need a musical interlude. And as we are celebrating Passover all next week, and our children are heavily involved in the main event, the Seder meal, here is Lenny Solomon with 2 children's songs for Passover, or as it's called in Hebrew, Pesach.
Oh where has my chametz gone? Oh where can it be? My Ima has cleaned so carefully. Oh where can it be? Oh where has my chametz gone? Oh where can it be? With a candle and feather we search every room. Oh where can it be? Oh where has my chametz gone? Oh where can it be? Pesach is coming, so chametz we burn. Oh where can it be? Oh where has my chametz gone? Oh where can it be? Pesach is here, only matzah we'll eat. No more chametz for me. Afikomen, where's the afikomen? Afikomen, I have to find it now. The middle matzah broken too. Who will find it, me or you? Broken too, me or you? Afikomen, where's the afikomen? Afikomen, I have to find it now. Living room by the stairs, check the cushions, check the chairs. By the stairs, check the chairs. Broken too, me or you? I have to find it now. It was found by Zadie's seat, now it's the last thing we eat. Zadie's seat, thing we eat. By the stairs, check the chairs, broken to me or you. Afikoman, where's the Afikoman? Afikoman, I finally found it now. Afikoman, here's the Afikoman. Afikoman, I finally found it now.
After that, back to business. As the rift between Likud and the Blue and White Party widened, their mutual accusations became more and more acid. The exchanges between Yamina Party head Naftali Bennett and Gideon Sa'ar, who heads the New Hope Party, have become bitter and unbecoming to a civilized election campaign. The hunger for power is overwhelming our senior politicians. It's no secret that my political leaning is to the right, so what is my choice in this election? Likud, today's still largest party, which will inevitably be led by Netanyahu, about whom I've already voiced my opinion as having to retire because of the indictments hanging over his head. Or Gideon Sa'ar, who is an opportunist and thought he could displace Netanyahu and therefore came out from his basement. Should I vote for Naftali Bennett, who keeps his cards so close to his chest that I believe he would ally with anybody to gain power? Or would that leave me no choice but to place the letter into the envelope for Smotrich's religious Zionist party and his ally Itamar Ben-Gvir? But they call their opponents dogs, and that does not sit well with me. Such name-calling contradicts their supposed Torah lifestyle. My political and humanitarian beliefs do not allow me to support religious extremists who do not realize that we have to live within the non-Jewish world around us. That, for me, excludes UTJ, United Torah Judaism Party, as well as the Shas Party. It has always been my strong belief that it is every citizen's civic duty to vote in at least a general election. By the way, I read in the column of political analyst Jeremy Sharon that a prominent ultra-Orthodox journalist expressed the opinion that we, and he meant the UTJ, quote, are educated and brought up with the idea that we have the right to vote, but not the right to choose. You must follow the rabbi's commands. This shtetl mentality will not build the state that we need. And I hope that the ultra-Orthodox community have enough intelligence to make their own decisions. As you will by now have realized, I have a problem. Should I cast a protest vote for the Greens, of whose wider agenda I know little, or defy my own principle and abstain? Today is decision time. I say again that the time has come to change the electoral system, that only by abandoning our anti-democratic method of sending unelected party delegates to Knesset who have no accountability to their voters, and instead establishing a legislature comprised of democratically elected representatives by the people, because the definition of democracy is the power of the people. Only then will we achieve a government able to govern. Forget direct elections for Prime Minister and all that stuff. It's been tried before and didn't work. And forget the you rub my back and I'll rub yours selection of the party leaders' favorites as delegates to the Knesset. They seldom have a view of their own, but reward their leader with their nod to anything he suggests, in the hope to land a ministerial job. Keep it here, there's more after the break.
And now, here is Walter Bingham.
The COVID pandemic has caused unimaginable and untold ruination in the business and retail world. Once flourishing stores were devoid of customers who were presented by the lockdown to leave home. The consequences are bankruptcies and for rent signs on many storefronts. The general business sector was forced to reduce staff and thousands were asked to work from home. This new phenomenon places an extra financial burden on the individual employee. He may have to make additional phone calls, computer use in connection with employment, and additional lighting. All that adds considerably to the cost of electricity. If the employer has reduced the size of his premises, and hence the tax bill, then he uses a proportion of his employee's property, which should be considered for the employer's municipal tax liability. These are just some of the consequences of the changes in the work pattern that requires changes in employment contract, or indeed amendments to the relevant laws. But what about the thousands who are now unemployed and who have to depend on additional grants provided by the state to be able to pay rent and buy food? I don't know who in Mea Shearim, an ultra-Orthodox area in Jerusalem, threw eggs at Minister Litzman because presumably he did not carry out the wishes of his clan. But like their own political leaders, they too are desecrating God's laws and forfeiting their right to Olam Haba, the next world. Did they not consider that wasting food, like throwing eggs or tomatoes, is tantamount to breaking Torah law, while some Jews are hungry that they have to break into premises to find food to eat? If they have surplus eggs, should they not give them to the poor? Although Israel is experiencing the vaccination miracle, to use the term of Health Minister Yuli Edelstein, the COVID-19 pandemic is still with us. Israel has acted judiciously in the efforts to try and minimize the effects of the outbreak by strict rules or mask wearing and distance keeping, as well as lockdowns, but we still have more than 800 serious cases in our hospitals, some in critical condition. Unfortunately, there are sectors within our population who flout the regulations and thus not only prolong the period necessary to maintain controls, but also irresponsibly affect the health of the nation. It is a sad fact that this irresponsibility also extends to politics, particularly before a general election. Optimism is important, but complacency is bad, said former Health Ministry Director Moshe Bar Simantov. Anyone with a modicum of sense who observes the political scene can see that the government exercises a measure of leniency in COVID regulation enforcement to those sectors that are likely to vote for the small ultra-Orthodox parties that will join the right-wing bloc and hence secure Netanyahu the premiership. That is blatant moral corruption and an illegal attempt to influence the result of the election. I am amused at the whining of David Oscar Marcus, the self-styled spokesman for Ghislaine Maxwell, the socialite girlfriend of wealthy sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who committed suicide while awaiting trial. She herself is convicted of sex trafficking and procuring minors for Epstein's sexual exploits. Marcus, who is also a lawyer, should know that life in prison is no picnic and quite different from the high society lifestyle to which Maxwell is used. He alleges that she is treated more harshly because of her wealth. Well, isn't it obvious that for such a person the difference is more pronounced than for a run-of-the-mill criminal? While a common thief causes material loss to his target, sex offenders physically and psychologically damage their victim and are often deprived of certain privileges. Her trial is scheduled to begin in July of this year. However long her prison sentence will be, she will on release have access to her considerable fortune. In his two-part article in the Jerusalem Post of March 16, titled Unbounded Jewish Who Decides, Professor Gad Barzilai has completely missed the point. Although he rightly said that a Jew can get citizenship in Israel when immigrating on production of evidence to prove his Jewishness, but then he complains that the same privilege is not extended to non-Jews and that our laws are demotivating their attempts to immigrate while stimulating Jews to do so. I'm also puzzled why he implies that it's wrong for our immigration laws to be based on national as well as religious motivation, and thus preventing, quote, Palestinians from immigrating for fear of changing the demographics. He knows full well that Israel is the only Jewish state among 22 Arab states, and that we cannot afford to any further dilute its population. I have great respect for the highly qualified professor of law, but has he not lost the plot? Was the modern Israel not established as a homeland for the Jewish people? In the second part of his article, Professor Barzilai asks in whose power is it to decide who is a Jew. He describes the recent decision of Israel's Supreme Court to recognize conversions by the Reform movement and consequent entitlement to Aliyah and citizenship, but fails to address the significant problems that flow from this decision. I would like to refer him to my article in the Jerusalem Post newspaper of March 14 entitled The Danger from Within, which spelled out the official requirement, or rather non-requirement, of reform conversions. No circumcision, no mikveh immersion, and no necessity to be familiar with any Jewish laws. Should the power to convert really be left to the discretion of the local reform community, Rabbi? No wonder that the Orthodox establishment is up in arms. We cannot allow the secular court to decide who is a Jew. Israelis are a strange lot when it comes to their choice of holiday destinations. Israel has 272 kilometers of Mediterranean coastline with 137 official beaches, from the very hot via the humid to the moderate. Yet I doubt if 25% have even made an effort to explore further than the Gush Dan metropolitan area coast that stretches for just 14 kilometers from Herzliya via Tel Aviv-Yafo to Bat Yam. Yet they will travel many miles to the very south of the country in order to cross 3 kilometers into Egypt and spend their money in Taba, when almost next to it we have the beautiful city of Eilat with the best hotels, the best beaches and entertainment facilities. And not least, no value-added tax on many products. The Abraham Accords have opened up flight connections to the United Arab Emirates, and our crazy Israelis were rushing to travel to the capital city of Abu Dhabi despite the dangers of the COVID pandemic. Many had great difficulty to return to Israel because of the restrictions. Etihad, the UAE airline, is also beginning a regular service to Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport. Now that international travel is slowly recovering, I hope to bring you an extensive travel report in the next program. I hear with some skepticism that President Biden, or perhaps more accurately his minders, have finally realized that his reputation would suffer and rumors about his mental condition might increase if he does not hold a news conference. So now he will. But why did they give 9 days' notice? Perhaps it takes that long to make sure that he remembers everything that he rehearsed. But what if an important unforeseen event occurs? Or really a smart journalist asks a question on a subject that was not anticipated? I wouldn't be surprised if his podium has an inbuilt screen on which his backroom staff project the answers. Isn't it sad that the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, is suspected to suffer from memory problems? And with that, I have to end for today. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write to me to walter@israelnewstalkradio.com, where you will always get my personal reply, or place your comment on the designated place of our website. There will be no program until April 2nd, and so until we meet again, this is Walter Bingham, wishing all my Jewish listeners a kosher and meaningful Pesach, and to all my other loyal and new listeners, be safe. And I send best wishes to the Baha'i community, who today celebrate Navruz, their spring festival and New Year. We are about to celebrate Passover. Jewish festivals, particularly in these COVID days, make it doubly difficult for the elderly not to be together with their loved ones. So please visit those who are alone and see that they have what they need. Goodbye.